Welcome to the Transform My Dance Studio podcast, powered by the Dance Studio Owners Association. Over the next 8 weeks, we are thrilled to be welcoming the one and only Hillary Parnell as our guest host for a brand new series, Pliés to Profits. Hillary is the owner of Academy for the Performing Arts in North Carolina, and this very special series will give you an inside look into how Hillary has grown her dance studio as she shares her tips on building a $1 million dance studio. We hope you enjoy Pliés to Profits with Hillary Parnell.
Hello everyone, I'm Hillary Parnell, and I am a growth coach for the Dance Studio Owners Association, and I work closely with studio owners around the world on ways to streamline systems, increase profit, and find balance for them to fight the burnout and exhaustion that can sometimes come with being a business owner. Hopefully, through this Pliés to Profits series, I can help even more studio owners become the CEO that you want to be. Hopefully, I'll remind you of something that you've wanted to try but haven't had a chance, or hopefully you'll be inspired to take action and move, even if it's just a little bit towards your goals. I try to make each episode a theme so that you can go back and listen on a specific topic if you need to hear it again. And I try to make sure that there is at least one thing that you can take away and go do. Things in motion stay in motion, and getting started is sometimes half the battle. If you can leave each episode and do one tiny thing, you'll start the tiny ripple that will eventually lead to making waves for your business. So today's theme is creative and new revenue streams. On today's episode, I'm going to share with you a long list of programs that dance studio owners around the world are offering to help diversify their revenue and get creative with their space. Then, we'll talk about how to know when it's time to jump on some of these ideas. Now, as you know, I'm sure, most dance studios operate mostly in the late afternoon and evening, and a little bit on the weekends. Smart studio owners try to think of ways to use their space during the day. This is assuming that you own your own building or lease a full space. If you rent from local churches or local venues, you may not have as much to worry about as far as covering these costs, but you can probably still apply some of these ideas and get really creative. So these smart studio owners think about other ways to bring money in besides just tuition for classes. In season 1 of Pliés to Profits, I did a whole episode on additional revenue streams like costumes, birthday parties, studio merchandise, private lessons, rentals, things like that you probably already know. But because I promised I wouldn't repeat anything this season, I've got a whole new list for you. So if you want to hear more about those, go back and check out season 1 for more information. But this list is going to be even more creative. Throughout the COVID crisis, studios have been forced to really think outside the box. How can we deliver a product to our students if we can't be open? So many studios pivoted quickly and offered Zoom classes. But what else can you do? What if that's not enough? What if people don't want to be on Zoom? And don't forget that there are also times when starting a new program or offering can actually hurt more than it can help. We've talked about not jumping in unless you know your studio is stable, that you have the staff and the organization to manage something new. Go back and listen to episode 1 of this season to make sure that your studio is in tip-top shape before jumping into something new. Be careful, because some of these things are going to be shiny and fun, but run your numbers, make your budget, make your projections, and carve out the time needed, and then you'll be good to go. But we're going to talk more about that later in this episode too. So let's get into it. As I mentioned, I've talked about birthday parties before, kind of a no-brainer. But what about virtual birthday parties? Kids are so used to being on Zoom now that throughout COVID, we've been to all kinds of virtual events. I personally have been to a virtual wedding, a virtual funeral, a virtual bridal shower, and a virtual baby shower. A kid's birthday party just makes sense. Parents are desperate to make their child's birthday something special that they will love, and if you can come up with a fun alternative for them, it's a win. Plan a simple craft, lead them in a few fun games, teach them a dance, sing happy birthday. You could even add on a special guest princess or rent a princess to show up and surprise the birthday girl on her special day. There are so many options, and especially if you're in an area of the world right now that is still relatively locked down, this could be a very lucrative addition for your studio. I have also talked last season about our daytime academic preschool. Now, the ability to do that has a lot to do with your state and local regulations, so you'll have to check those out. But once you find out what you're able to do and what your rules are, lots of studios are hosting daytime arts clubs, kids clubs, enrichment programs, or even virtual assistance programs. They're between an hour and a half or even up to 3 to 4 hours. You can run them 5 days a week or just 2 or 3. They can work like a drop-in Mother's Morning Out or more like a consistent school program. No matter how you set it up, it's a really great use of your studio space during the day. Staffing is typically less expensive than regular dance classes, and the price point is actually higher per student. So if your space is sitting empty all day, get creative. Find something that excites you and run with it. The academic learning centers have been a great addition for many studios during COVID. They are programs where the kids are being helped with their virtual schoolwork. You can still offer some dance classes and other types of enrichment while they're there. Parents are so happy to have the help, and you are offering something for your community that has really never been done before. Also, many studios have been forced to move classes outside during the pandemic. But what if that didn't go away? Outdoor classes in certain areas are beautiful. For now, sure, you can pop up some tents and have the kids dance in sneakers, but what if you put a little more effort into that? What if you submitted for a permit, built an actual floor, got it inspected, added lights, and created a new outdoor space like no other studio in your area? Of course, there will be some hurdles and some expense. You have to have the space. You have to have a great landlord or own your own property. You have to have a reasonable town council who is willing to work with small businesses and do something outside the norm. And you have to have the funds set aside or possibly a low interest loan for the build out. And finally, you have to market it correctly so that your community and your customers see it as a unique opportunity rather than some last minute subpar parking lot class. But if you do it right and you create such buzz and excitement around your new offering, you'll be thinking that this whole COVID thing was really just a great opportunity to grow your business in a way that you never would have thought of before. And you've added an additional classroom, which is additional space, which is additional revenue. So what about creating your own class offerings, right? Here's another really creative way to attract more customers. Under normal circumstances, I bet if a mom came to you and said, I have 6 friends who want to start a class at some time that you already don't offer on the schedule. Again, that's a no-brainer. You would definitely create that class for them, right? Assuming you have time on the schedule and a teacher available. But, let's say you offer daytime classes on Tuesday and Thursday, and they want a Wednesday class at 10 a.m., right? If someone came to you and said, I'll bring you 6 students, you would bend over backwards to make that happen, of course. But have you ever actually advertised that? Probably not. I haven't, and now I'm kicking myself. This could have been a great idea years ago. But because of COVID, studios are putting it out there as an option for people to stay with their pod or their cohort, and it's working. Parents are looking for a safe activity, and you can be that activity. You might need to be a little bit flexible and put in a little more front-end work, but in this economy, it is going to be so worth it. And who wouldn't bend over backwards for 6 new students? The idea is just making sure that you let your customers know that it's an option. Okay, we're running through these. I hope you're getting some ideas. Next up, what about private or semi-private lesson packages? Now, I know we all know about private lessons. I guarantee almost every studio in the entire world offers private lessons, right? But what about home private lessons or driveway private lessons? How creative can you be? Can you offer private lessons in a park? Can you offer private lessons in your yard? Can you offer private lessons on a festival stage at your local chamber of commerce? Right? Private lessons are really big right now, and you could be missing out on a really lucrative revenue stream that could continue well past the pandemic. Under normal circumstances, there are already a lot of ways studios handle private lessons. Some are lumped in with, getting a solo. Some are run through the studio, and some are handled by the teacher separately. Ultimately, it doesn't matter how you decide to do it for your studio. The fact of the matter is, in almost every studio that I've talked to about this, private lessons are one thing that is often overlooked and considered sort of an afterthought. Sure, you might feel like there are tons of kids doing private lessons, but I bet you have moms of dancers who really don't understand how all that works. You're probably thinking it's easy. Just email me and I'll set it up and we'll find you a teacher and schedule it, put it on the calendar. But they might be thinking that they missed out on some special invitation. Do you actually have a website page dedicated to private lessons? Does it explain how those lessons can benefit your dancer? Do you offer it as part of your onboarding email sequence or talk about it during your studio tour? If not, I bet you could sell lots more private lessons if you simply let people know about it and how to go about getting them. So consider that as you move forward with your private lessons that you're already doing. It may just take a little bit of internal marketing to really capitalize on that additional revenue stream. And the other good part is that private lessons can fill studio space that is not prime time. You now have kids that are in virtual school that could come during the day. You can sell your Sunday afternoons with private lessons. You don't need to have a class of 12 that are available. You only need to have one kid. And one kid might love Sunday afternoons. So another one we talked about last season was master classes and how lucrative those can be. But this season, we're going to talk about how to make them super trendy and call them pop-up classes. The cool thing about pop-up classes is that it doesn't even have to be a master. It can actually just be one of your own staff members at a much lower price point than one of these master instructors that you bring in. Make it special. Focus on one skill. Give it a theme or just put it at a weird time and you'll actually get more interest because it's something unique. Things as simple as a cartwheel pop-up class or deep stretch pop-up class actually can go really well. You can also fill these by calling specific dancers and inviting them to come. This past summer, we filled 2 week-long, full-day, high-dollar pop-up camps simply by calling parents and specifically asking them to enroll. We told them that it's a really exclusive camp and we only have a few spots, but we really think it will help propel their dancer to the next level. Bam, 15 kids in a camp that didn't even exist on the schedule. On-site pop-up classes are also really popular. A sunrise stretch class at a vineyard or in an orchard would be a great advertising opportunity for a local small business. Yoga or improv in the park is so simple, could cost you nothing but a teacher and be filled in a second. You can even offer classes in your own backyard. Parents would probably love to just come to your house. So be creative with your pop-up classes and make sure that you put significant amount of advertising and marketing behind them. And those can be a really, really great way to kind of boost your monthly tuition. Okay, now what if you are strictly a dance studio for kids? Then add adult classes. If you are an adult class studio, add some kids classes. If you only teach dance, what about adding fitness for kids or adults? There are boot camps, there are ballet bar fit classes, there's Zumba, there's every kind of dance fitness class out there. What about adding theater or acting classes? Theater productions can be really lucrative if done correctly. What about adding art classes like painting or drawing? You have the space. Well, you just need a few tables. What about voice lessons, music lessons, karate, cheerleading? You would be surprised how many dance studios are partnering with other after-school activities like these. I would poll your parents or your teachers and find out what other kinds of things they teach. You may have a great dance teacher who happens to also be able to teach painting. You already have the staff, you already have the students, and they already have a relationship. So find out how you can use the staff you already have to create even more opportunities. What about an after-school enrichment program? We talked a little bit about this in season 1, but it's worth repeating because it's simply more important than ever because kids need the opportunity to get off screens. They need to get moving. They need to have a chance to socialize. The ad copy for this practically writes itself in this crazy pandemic. And since most kids aren't physically in school and you don't even have to worry about transportation, right now, parents are dying to get their kids out of the house after a long day of virtual school. Find those parents and their like-minded friends and offer a 2-hour class that can include dance or not. Organized games, maybe some arts and crafts, science experiments. These are all things they're not getting in school right now. Another really great idea that I heard recently was goal-setting sessions. Ours have always been included in our company fees, but there's no reason that these can't be offered to recreational students as well, or to your company students if you don't already include them at an additional fee. Basically, parents pay a fee for their dancer to meet with the teacher or the director for a consultation. It's a 30-minute meeting. These can be done in person or even on Zoom. Dancers can fill out a self-evaluation or have an evaluation done by their teachers. You discuss their goals and their plans for their career in dance. And then they leave with a custom plan, maybe some workouts that they can do at home. And you can even couple it with a private lesson too, but charge extra for it on the back end. Simple. But make sure, like everything else, that you advertise for it correctly. I've also heard of studios getting really creative with parent night out events. I've always been super jealous of the gymnastics places around my area. Parent night outs for them are a piece of cake. All that equipment to play on, it's easy to sell and really simple to staff. Kids can just jump on the trampoline or in the foam pit for a few hours, throw on a movie, and everyone's happy. It's a little trickier for dance studios, and now with COVID, even more difficult to make sure that kids have a good time and want to come back again, but it's also not so crazy difficult for your staff that they're too exhausted to ever want to do it again. It's hard enough to get people to work on a Friday or Saturday night, right? So what can you do? What about a movie night or a mock drive-in where you project a movie on the building? Kids bring a blanket or towel and spread out all over the parking lot. It's socially distant and super simple. You could play a few games beforehand, have a snack, get pizza even, and call it a night. Or what about combining a fun activity with an actual dance class? Basically like a pop-up parent night out. You could dance for an hour and a half, have a snack, maybe do water balloons or something fun like that. Also add a movie. Super simple. And I've even heard of studios pulling this off virtually. So I know it can be done. All right, these next few make me sound a little crazy, but I've never shied away from trying anything new. So one of these might just spark your interest. And if it works out, why not? You might end up finding a really good fit for your studio, networking with the right people, and in a perfect world, find some sort of side benefit for you personally to make it worth your while. So a few times we have organized a holiday bazaar for local vendors around Christmas time. We have a ton of space, so why not offer it out? We sell booths and advertise the event in our community, and that's it. The individual vendors bring their own, even tables and chairs if you need them to. They do all the setup and all the breakdown, and you benefit from networking with a great group of people, get some shopping done while you're there, supporting your local community, and bringing new people through the door. Plus, making money off the rental of the booths. So that's a great one. For 2 years, I actually turned my entire studio for a week into a full-fledged haunted house. We made a little bit of money off of that, but I love Halloween, so that was mostly just fun and selfish. And it really was amazing to get the whole studio involved. We had, 6-year-old little zombie schoolgirls and lots of parents building the sets. And it was just a really great community event. And again, brought more people in the door that maybe didn't know that we existed. We held a huge community festival one year, fully equipped with bouncy houses, magicians, food trucks, a petting zoo, and then a huge silent auction. It was a lot of work, but we made money for the studio and everyone had a blast. Another really random thing we did was run a children's consignment shop. Or sale, I suppose. For a full week, we did a full consignment sale where parents dropped off their merchandise and they had to tag everything and we helped tag things. And the studio basically took, I believe, 30% off the top of all sales. And then parents actually made money back too. So this worked really well for me while I had really young children and I was able to shop and find clothes and strollers and cribs and things like that. And again, brought more people into the building that may not have otherwise known we were here. And a consignment sale is great because those cater mostly to young parents with young children. And that is exactly our target market. Now, I know all of this can seem a little contradictory. I keep saying not to follow every shiny idea, but then I give you a whole bunch of shiny ideas. It's tricky. It's tricky to figure out when the time is right to go all in on a new project. There have been so many times that I regret starting something new. And almost every time it's because I jumped too quickly into it. I didn't give it enough thought, enough planning, or enough energy. So when is the right time? Let me walk you through my process now. These are the questions I ask myself when I want to follow a shiny new idea. It becomes pretty clear pretty quickly when something isn't going to work. So, the first thing I look at is a timeline. Where am I on my 90-day plan? If the quarter has just begun and I'm looking at 3 big goals and they're already on my list and I have 3 months to work on them, that's my first big stopping point. My plate is full. It's not worth it. Nothing can be added for the next 90 days. Let's say, for instance, you want to do a teacher workday camp. Ooh, that wasn't already on our list that we talked about today. So add teacher workday camps to the list. Now, let's say the first teacher workday is in 5 weeks. That seems like plenty of time to add that to my calendar and to add it to my 90-day plan. But let's think about all that would actually need to happen to make that successful. And by successful, I mean really successful. Tons of kids, parents thrilled, kids wanting to come back next time, raving fans because they are blown away by the customer experience that is in line with your regular business model. You would need to create the event in your software. After you pin down the exact time you want to make the program, you need to make sure that that's on your internal calendar so you don't double book the room. You'll need to find staff members to work it. You'll need to create a graphic and a flyer for social media. You'll need to create an ad campaign for advertising it, whether internally or externally. Schedule your posts, schedule your emails, write the copy for your posts, write the copy for your emails, and get all of that information out to your customers. You'll need to add it to your weekly and monthly newsletter. And if you only do a monthly newsletter, it might be too late already. You'll have to add the information to your website. You might even need to do a quick photo shoot to get a good branded picture to use for the campaign. Then you need to actually create a plan for the event. Are you going to offer before and after care? If so, how much is it going to cost? How do they register for that? What activities will you do the day of the event? Do you have the games and the movies and the snacks that you'll need? Do you need to purchase anything? You'll need to create a system for enrollment and confirmation, including a text message beforehand and an email telling them what to expect. You'll need to have them sign a waiver. So yeah, That could probably all get done in 5 weeks, but it's a lot. And would you have time to focus and also make sure that the other 3 goals you had on your plan are getting done properly? Probably not. Something will have to give. And if you're not focused on prioritizing your original 3 goals, what if you have 3 new ideas and you try to accomplish all of those steps for 3 new things? It's not going to happen. The ball is going to drop. So first, stop if the timeline is too short and be realistic with yourself about how much time something will take to be done correctly. Could you do a less fantastic job in less time? Yes, 100%. But that's when you end up working kind of hard for minimum return. It's not worth it and you'll burn out. If you do it all right the first time, the system will now be in place for the next one, and you'll have kids on a waiting list because the event was so well organized and so well executed. Okay, so if it's something that I can add to maybe next quarter or even later in the year, and we've passed the timeline test, I take inventory of my staff and their stress level during that time of the year. For instance, May is a crazy time for most dance studios. You're getting ready for the recital, you're doing company auditions, you're sending their invitations, you're registering for summer and next fall, and it kind of all happens at the same time. It's crazy. Would I consider adding a huge new program that needed to launch in May? I can almost say absolutely not. But if I wanted to start something that would launch in January and it's now August and my staff is pretty much running like a machine, then you know I'm going to throw something new at them. I'll introduce it at our monthly meeting. Then each month we'll work on building the to-do list, and by January it will be part of our daily schedule and everyone will be excited to see it happen. And finally, if we pass those first 2 tests, I evaluate the return on investment and the financial position of the business, because this equation changes a lot depending on so many factors. There's not really a hard and fast mathematical equation, which I would love, but it is a solid combination of forecasting, knowing your numbers, and then following your gut. And even though you might be wrong, it's still better to at least try to determine its financial potential rather than just completely winging it. So that means if you're thinking of starting, let's say, a cheer program at your studio, first, you should figure out how many kids you could possibly hold and see if those numbers make it worth your while. Then, guess how many you think you're going to get right off the bat, and guess low. You want to plan for the very worst case scenario. Then, make sure your current financial situation can handle that worst case scenario. In other words, if you have to buy mats and give up a dance room and hire a teacher, and think your worst case scenario will bring you 5 new kids to sign up, you need to know unequivocally that those 5 kids are going to cover those initial costs. If the answer is no, stop right there. Your gut feeling will come in helping you determine the worst case scenario, because really there's no way to know for sure. But if you have talked to people in your community, or people have been asking about cheer, or you know for a fact that 3 of your friends have friends that would all sign up for this new program, then you can guesstimate pretty well. But if you're flying completely blind, you may need to get your feelers out there. You might need to do a survey. You might need to have people sign up for a wait list just to see how much interest there actually is. And then this can also change because knowing what you can afford to risk is really based on your overall financial situation. So that's why not every idea is right for every business, and even more so, not right for every business every year. You could have the same exact idea, let's say 5 years ago, and decide that it wasn't the right move, but then have that idea this year and it could become a huge success. I wouldn't regret not doing it sooner. It's very likely that the circumstances were not right 5 years ago. And even if you had tried, it might have still failed. And that is another reason not to have FOMO. not to go after every idea that you hear me talk about or even see at another studio near you or on social media. Just because it's working for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And even if it might work for you one day, doesn't guarantee it's going to work for you today. Now, once you've decided to move forward with a new idea or program, do it right. Go through all the steps that I mentioned earlier. Make it a system as you create it. Make sure that you can duplicate it down the road when you want to run it again and you don't have to rewrite the book every time. Enlist the help of the right staff members right from the beginning. Clearly communicate your objectives and your excitement and give them reasonable turnaround times to complete the work. Your team is going to thank you for that and not look at you like you're crazy every time you come to them with a new idea. And finally, and probably the most important part, schedule a recap or review of your new program or event. If it is a one-off event like a performance or a sale of some merchandise, schedule your recap for the following day or following week immediately after the event. Go over your budget, review your revenue, go over the expenses, and hopefully your profit. Discuss what could have been done better and more efficiently. Take notes on changes you would make if you were to have this event again, and keep them somewhere you can easily put your hand on when it's time to do it all over again. If the new program is a longer term type thing, like adult fitness classes or offering the private goal setting sessions, then add the topic to your recurring monthly or weekly meeting agenda. Make sure that you're discussing it each time you meet. You should have KPIs in place and discuss the finances. You should be adjusting your pricing as you go or paying more attention to your spending and expenses if necessary. So yes, shiny new ideas can be great. They can add new revenue to your business, bring new people through the door, and help diversify your income in the event that one part of your business can't work or hit some rough times. Just be smart, be cautious, and be deliberate in your actions. I hope you got some fun ideas in this episode, or at the very least, got your gears turning to come up with some amazingly creative ideas of your own. Throughout the pandemic, dance studio owners have proven to be resilient and strong, but mostly creative. That's what we do best. Take advantage of that and get to work. On the next episode of Pliés to Profits, I'm going to tell you my secrets to surviving and even thriving during a crisis. And yes, we've all shared in the most recent global crisis, but what about more predictable catastrophes that can affect your studio? What about losing a team member or simply having one out on maternity leave for half the year? What happens if your toilet breaks and floods your entire building? What if you simply get a really bad review on Google? How can you prevent these disastrous events from taking you down? How can you actually use these negative events as opportunities to raise you and your studio up? I'm Hillary, and I will talk about all of that next time on Pliés to Profits on the Transform My Dance Studio podcast.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to join us over in the Dance Studio Owners Hub Facebook group for more resources and support in growing the dance studio of your dreams while reclaiming your life.